Besides working on different extraction methods and just growing the cacti in general, I've been working on a few side projects over the past 2 years. And one of them is a supplement for pretty much any plant. I've also applied this to my more sensitive plants and I've seen some benefits. But the main thing is, without over fertilizing, there used to be an issue with some discoloration or light green skin, and usually you would just fertilize and you would get excessive growth. But I personally don't like to over apply fertilizer. So with this supplemental product, I apply it here, just it's in solution here. I apply 1 milliliter per liter of water, since it's very concentrated here, and I just apply a foliar spray, and within a few days the skin becomes a very nice rich dark green tone to it. And this is without additional fertilizing. You can apply your regular fertilizer and foliar sprays and what have you, and this has no NPK value. It's just a supplement. It increases the absorption of the minerals and nutrients from the root. It increases the uptake. It helps plants that are having a bit of trouble with either poor soil conditions or even excess drought periods. And in general, I've seen a huge benefit to applying this supplement I'm working on. Most of the ingredients, if not all, are already used commercially in agriculture, but they use varying values and not in combination. And I've tried a few different proportions and ratios to the solution I'm working on, and so far this is the best ratio and dilution that I've come across. I have burnt a few of my plants while working on this, and they do outgrow it. It's not a massive issue, but you would just apply this once a month. You can apply it as much as you want, but there is a threshold where it does cause toxic effects due to the overaccumulation of the supplements. These supplements are organic acids, and they are naturally produced by nearly all plants, just in varying degrees. Saying that they're organic acids doesn't mean that it's organic per se, but you can most likely find a 100% organic substitute for this. I won't be sharing the ratios or the dilutions, since I do want to monetize this. I'm not going as far as patenting it, or I'm not going to try to protect it, and I will be sharing the ingredients for transparency's sake. But again, I won't be sharing any proportions or the amount of each of the acids. And if you want, you can try to replicate it yourself and do whatever you want. It's not gonna kill me. But I do apply this to literally all my plants, including vegetables, and I will eat it without any issues whatsoever. But I'm mainly advertising this as an ornamental greening agent for plants. If you have a house plant that's struggling a bit and it isn't that lush green and you don't want to just fertilize it, you can apply this during the winter months. It should increase the cold tolerance of certain plants. And I am mainly sharing this not because I'm ready to actually sell this, but I plan on doing an experiment with this to see if it increases the alkaloid content in cacti. Here you can see the very nice dark green tone. But you do not see is the light green bloated effect that you get from fertilizing or over fertilizing, trying to get that green growth. Again, this is the same exact fertilizing regimen that I've always used, and I see a huge benefit to this application. In the end, I am selling a product, so it's up to you to believe me or not, but I'm not trying to monetize selling some BS product. I don't want to sell you something that has no benefit to you. I'm very appreciative to the people that have donated to my channel. Any small amount helps, and if those of you that have donated to me would like this, when I get around to actually selling it, I would just ask for the shipping costs and I'll send you a free product for the supplement I'm producing. So instead of like just making a sticker or a t-shirt or something, you can spend your money on something else. This product isn't like a necessity. You don't want it, simply don't buy it, don't use it. This is just something I personally see a benefit to. It doesn't affect flowering, as you see here. It is relatively non-toxic. Obviously they're in its concentrated form. In this form it is toxic. You don't want to get this on your skin, but once you dilute it, again, 1 milliliter to 1 liter of water, it's relatively safe. I'll apply it to my skin and show it's not an issue, but in a concentrated state, you do not want to get it anywhere near your skin, your mouth, your eyes. It will cause some damage, but diluted, it's relatively safe enough that I would put it on my hand, I would put a drop in my mouth. It's not an issue. Diluted. So I have applied this foliar to all my plants, even my more sensitive plants, and I've actually seen a huge benefit as far as pests. In the past years, I've had a massive issue with an excess amount of aphids, and they basically ruined some plants. And this year, partly due to the foliar spray, I have something I've learned about recently is mummy aphids. So this foliar spray product, in the past, one component of it has been presented as a pesticide or insecticide, and so I do have some aphids still, but it's in very low proportions. This foliar spray increases defense properties of the plants, and I have also applied it directly onto my tomatoes as well. And I will be eating these without any fear whatsoever, since the plant itself does already produce these organic acids in lower amounts. And the amount that, again, I have tested this a few times already, and the dilution that I do it at isn't toxic, and I use 2 milliliters of the product and 2 liters, and I water my entire collection. So here, this kratom sister plant has always had issues with, I think it's chlorosis, where it's the yellowing of the plants. I have fertilized, I have done everything, but it doesn't seem to fix this issue. But after applying, you can see it greens up some leaves, and the new leaves are actually a little bit burnt. You can see here. It's kind of like a purplish reddish tone, and it's likely in the accumulation of the acids in those locations. But with time, it'll outgrow it and it gets quite healthy. Even with more rarer plants, I guess, like this chariponga, I apply it and there's a huge increase very quickly. The leaf gets much darker green, and overall it gets healthier in time. I apply it to my chacronas. You can see a very dark green on the older leaves. I applied it to my cacti. Some leaves are already getting older, but again, some leaves get very dark green as it accumulates on the photosynthetic skin or flesh. And I also applied it to all of my cacti. And the experiment that I'm going to do is I'm compounding the experiment on testing if ethylene increases the biosynthesis of mescaline, and I also get a control. It'll be a control for this largest piece. I'll be separating 1 foot sections. It'll be a control in ethylene, an ethylene experiment using calcium carbide, and a third with a higher concentration of the product that I'm working on. And it'll be either in a 10x or a 20x concentration to what I suggest as a foliar spray for the benefits of the increasing the uptake of nutrients and the overall greening effect that it causes on the plants. So be cutting again 1 foot sections. This did receive a single application at, again, the 1 milliliter per liter concentration, which is what I'm advocating for this product. You can obviously test different variations and amounts. This is just the amount that I've seen that doesn't cause any burning and can be applied to any plant whatsoever. So I'll get back, I'll cut this, I'll mark the control, the ethylene experiment, and the product I'm working on, which doesn't have a name yet. And the idea for the experiment. The control is obviously for seeing if there's an increase or decrease in the alkaloids. The ethylene experiment, I tested in the past, but I didn't have enough experience extracting to confirm if it increased or not. In the past, even without usable data, I did notice a large increase in the alkaloids that did form, the salts. There was a visible increase in the salts, but again, the data wasn't usable. And with this product, I also believe there's going to be an increase in alkaloids. This experiment will run for 2 weeks. In the 2 weeks, there will only be a single application of the product, and the gas will be supplemented daily with a small amount of calcium carbide. I've suggested using bananas or apples to produce ethylene in a more natural form, but I don't have those on hand and I'm not going to buy it for this experiment itself. And in the end, I'll share the results. And yeah. And here is the cut mother stand. And here are the cuttings. They were a cut at a foot length. I'll mark them, weigh them, and then we'll start the experiment. For the control, I'll just leave it 2 weeks just sitting on its own without doing anything, and then the other two I'll obviously run the accompanying experiment. And like I mentioned, I did apply the product that I'm working on. For all of these, I did apply a full layer spray, and you can see there's a very dark layer on the outside. I didn't have a control with no application to it, since I was mainly working on seeing a safer application rate so that it has the visual benefits of darkening and being green without any of the toxic burning effect and what have you. I got around to labeling each of them, and now more to document the weight. For the acid product, it'll be 252 grams starting. The control, which is the heaviest, is 300 grams. And the ethylene experiment is 256 grams. So here I'll be adding the product I'm working on. It's 100 milliliters, so a single drop would be, or not a single drop, a single milliliter would be 10x concentration. I decided to just do 20, so I'll put 2 milliliters in the 100 milliliters of water. And here is the calcium carbide. It wasn't protected from humidity, so it broke down quite a bit. But when I add water, it still produces the, I think it's azoethylene, something to that extent, the gas. But it'll still work for my purposes. So I'll add a small amount to this container, add some water, and I'll be placing it all into a plastic bag so that it'll concentrate the ethylene or the ethylene substitute. It's close enough. In the plant, it becomes ethylene, and it'll still be able to breathe and everything. It'll be a white plastic bag. It'll still get sunlight. It's not going to be in darkness. And I'll be adding a small amount daily to keep supplementing the ethylene. Let's see if I can open one hand. Yeah. So again, a single milliliter would be the concentration. I'll be adding 2. Okay, so 2 milliliters. And this is fairly concentrated, so I won't be doing the skin test on this one. Actually, yeah. So I touched it. I wouldn't recommend doing this, but it's fairly dilute compared to the concentrate, compared to a direct touching it here. So you would want to use proper, what is it, PPE, protective, preventive equipment or something to that extent. You should use gloves, careful not to get, so you wouldn't apply this like during windy, you want a downdraft. You wouldn't want it to blow back in your face or anything. So yeah, here is the experiment. I'll actually get something to store a little bit, just so it soaks a bit more. Yeah, it's not absorbing great, but I'll leave this for a while. So obviously the protective wax on the outside will prevent it from absorbing a lot. So I'll be adding this slowly, and I'll let it soak for a bit. And yeah, that's the experiment for that. I'll put the ethylene into the plastic bag like I mentioned, and in 2 weeks I'll give you the results. So there's a bit more absorption. I just got a paper towel, and I'll let this stay in contact until it eventually evaporates and dries off. So again, this is just a foliar. You don't need to leave it soaking. When you apply this for the normal greening effects, you would apply it early morning or late afternoon. You would apply it a day before or a day after any foliar spray, and you just let it, you spray it to run off. It doesn't need to be a soil drench. You actually don't want it to be a soil drench. Just a foliar spray, and whatever is absorbed is more than enough. And I'll just leave this here. Here's the calcium carbide. In the States, I think you get it as like a model gunpowder substitute, I guess, for model canyons and stuff like that. They sell it in pellets. Here I had it as a single large rock, but like I mentioned, I didn't protect it from humidity, so it broke down into this sand-like texture. So small amount, add some water. You can see it fizzing. It's releasing the ethylene substitute gas. And here, there's a very distinct smell to this. It's actually flammable, so don't do this near open flames, obviously. And then I'll slightly open this, put it in the bag, and again, every day or so add a little bit more water so it keeps producing. And for 2 weeks I'll be doing this. Here's the setup: the ethylene cutting, the carbonate with water producing the gas. I'll just loosely close this and leave it for 2 weeks, accumulating the gas and whatever processes, enzymes, or whatever that occurs in it. And for the product I'm working on, just to see if it does increase the alkaloid production, I rotated it and kept it wrapped in the wet paper towel with the product at a concentration 20 times what I'm recommending for the greening effect in the foliar spray. So I've been touching the diluted but still concentrated solution. I'm not noticing any irritation or anything with this concentration, but again, it's not suggested. I'll put this in its location over there where I'll be keeping it for the 2 weeks. I'll drizzle and drop a bit more of this solution so that it keeps soaking slowly. But again, just as foliar spray would have been enough. And we'll see how it proceeds. This cutting and the control will be in a location that gets some sunlight and very bright shade for the rest of the day. And this cutting will obviously be covered since I don't have a transparent bag, but there's some cuts, that's not some holes, it's not an issue. It'll keep circulating. Once a day I'll add some water until it stops fizzing, and once it stops fizzing I'll add some more calcium carbide. I don't really have a way to control the amount. I don't really think that matters much, but in theory there will be a limit to how much ethylene you provide it before it actually kills it basically instantly. Similar to carbon dioxide when you supplement for your growing, there's a threshold limit where it'll do more harm than good. So I'm just squeezing the rest of the solution so that soaks in a bit more. And yeah, in 2 weeks I'll do the extractions. I'll be freezing them all, like chopping them and freezing it so that they're basically all ceased reactions and biosynthesis and whatnot. I'll freeze them all after cutting them smaller, and then one by one I'll do the extraction using traditional extraction like cash. I won't be doing the oasis extraction just so that I have a more controlled and complete extraction. I'll be doing excess pH salting so that I pull all of the alkaloids, and then I'll separate specifically the mescaline to see and compare, and I'll compare also the non-mescaline hydrochloric salt as well, since that's of interest to me lately. And again, there's a control. We'll have the weight. I'll do the dry weight as well. And yeah, from there I'll just proceed. Just a backstory to how I came about to figuring out this formula for the greening agent. I didn't specifically search or research any of these properties. It was initially just focused on the alkaloid production, and while experimenting and testing it on my own plants, I noticed this effect, and then just further progression, working on dilutions and concentrations, I came about this property that I personally really enjoy. And from there, initially, again, this was a product specifically for increasing alkaloids, but has developed into a greening agent. So when you fertilize, you just mainly get the very light green growth, which you get from the rapid cell expansion. But with this product, you still get new growth without adding new NPK, so it won't negatively affect your plant, especially if you're nearing the winter months. You wouldn't want to fertilize, so this is a good alternative if you want this property. And it just increases the uptake in general, so you'll get the most out of your nutrient solution. Again, you do not mix this with a foliar spray. You do it separately. Again, either a day before or a day after you apply your normal foliar spray. Just allow it to dry. You can apply it the following day without any issues. And the way that I understand it is that it collects and stores more nutrients, including calcium, in the cell walls, cell membrane, and rather than releasing it, it'll store it more. And this also plays into another experiment that I'm working on developing, is inducing flowering. That project is going to take much longer than I anticipated. I thought I finally cracked the code, but my Bradgesi monstrose didn't flower. It just pupped, but it did pup differently. The areolae, it became a very dark brown fuzz initially, and then it just pupped. So maybe it's just not old enough. I'll repeat the experiment in the future. But this is a product that basically coincides with that other product that I'm working on. And the foliar spray that I'm working on also works to stop or prevent the weeping black rot. This was before the application had started, and I just decided to apply it. And overall, this plant, despite it being in the hydroponic solution, has very little to no weeping black rot. There is some scaling that does occur from some minimal black rot issues, but overall I attribute it to the foliar spray, but it could just be the genetics in general, and it's not related. So yeah, if you have a specific experiment that you would like to see tested, let me know. I have, in a few months, maybe one more set of trichoceres that I can use for the experiment. So I'm going to have a control and then test two more variables. This one was my largest. I just used it for my current experiment. That one's too small, and this one may also be ready in a few months. I don't mind it if the wet weight is approximately 300 grams from at least my clones, since they're Brigezi. It tends to have enough material to have a weighable end product, so that I can do the control and any variation between it.